Hi, I'm Robyn from Red Robyn Crafts. Today I'd like to show you how to backstitch. This foundation stitch has endless applications in your craft work, and you'll find that I use it extensively in my feltbook patterns to add detail to images and to add text. In this example, you can see that I've used backstitch to outline the bricks on the wall, to write the words Humpty Dumpty, and to outline the cracks on Humpty's face. The best part about this stitch is that it's very easy to perfect. Give yourself a few practice tries and you'll be amazed at what you can achieve with it. Here we go.
So here I have my backstitch sample. I'm going to show you how to stitch on felt. Now you can see that I've marked here using a water-soluble pen. I've marked where I want my stitches to begin and end. If you're new to stitching, I recommend you do a similar thing. This way you can be sure that your stitch length is exactly the same all the way along. If you've done this before, that may be unnecessary. It's really up to you and how much experience you have with this. Now, for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to use a contrasting thread. Again, it really depends on what you're doing with your project. If you want this stitching to really stand out, you might also use a contrasting thread. Otherwise, you might try to match it more closely with your fabric if you're wanting it to disappear a little bit into the fabric. So to begin, you're actually not going to start at your very first mark. Instead, I'm going to bring the needle up from behind into the second mark here. You'll start to see why this is called backstitch in a second. So I'm going to bring my needle up from underneath into that second marker. Pull it all the way through. I have my thread knotted at the back, so that's being caught on the back side of my fabric where it won't be seen. Then the backstitch part comes into it because I'm actually going to go back now into my first marker and pull that through from the front all the way through. There's my first stitch completed, and then I'm going to continue along. For each successive stitch I'm going to continue going into the hole where I want it to end and then back into where I want it to begin. So from behind, and then back into the beginning of that stitch to join it up to the first one. So you'll start to see a line form here. Bring it up from underneath and back in to join with my line. Now backstitch, as you saw in some of the examples, can be used to create lovely straight lines such as this. Also, it is the perfect stitch if you're wanting to stitch in a curve design into your craft work. So you'll see here I've got a curve coming up. To get around the curve, I'm going to continue stitching in exactly the same way. Nothing will change. The only difference is that I'm going to just gradually start moving my needle around to accommodate that curve. If you are stitching a particularly tight curve, then I would be using much smaller stitches than this in order to get around it neatly. My stitches here are about 5 millimeters apart or 1/4 of an inch apart, and that's fine for a curve as shallow as this. But if I had quite a tight curve, I'd be using a much finer stitch. It's just so that I can create a neater line. There's backstitch. To finish it off, you're going to complete your last stitch. You'll find that your thread is on the back. I'm just going to pass my needle underneath one of those final threads, pull it through until I've made a loop, and then I'm going to pass my needle through that loop, pull tight, that'll make a knot, and then I can trim that off and that'll be my backstitch complete. I hope that helped.